Greetings all. I'm sitting out here in the nursery in the rain in a dry spot. Yeah, it's raining again. This morning, since it's raining, I was going to go out and I was planning to work on those tomatoes I found in the garden. You can do some more weeding and some fertilizing, put down some kind of mulch, but yeah, it's raining. I don't want to go out there. So instead, I put on a nice shirt, this one Rick's Islandwear, and decided I'd shoot a video about germinating seeds. Yeah, about growing plants from seeds, because I'm going to be in the shed over there behind me today because of the rain, working with seeds. So it's appropriate to my day. Yeah, there are only a few things that can be said generally about seed. Okay. Most seed is designed to sprout and grow into a plant when it lands in an appropriate place on the earth, receives adequate moisture and whatever other conditions it might need, for germination, and those vary a lot. Okay. That's about the only thing all seed has in common. It eventually sprouts and becomes a plant in the right location, hopefully. All right. Well, now, most of us, the seeds that we're familiar with, are the ones that we've handled in the past, are the annual garden crops and the annual garden flowers. A few people have probably dealt with perennial flowers and plants too. Listening, they can be a little different than the annuals. It depends. Oh boy, here comes a fuzzy gray cat. Hi, Gracie. Yeah, I left her inside, but she made her way out. She says, I know what Bill's doing. He's shooting a video and he forgot me. I did. What am I gonna do, huh? How can I shoot a video when Gracie needs help? What you need today, huh, girl? Yeah? Just coming out to see me. So, those annual garden type seeds, now they're all pretty similar in their requirements. They're close. The vast majority of them don't take very long to germinate. Usually somewhere between 48 hours and 2 weeks is pretty typical. Now these times will vary depending on the temperature and the conditions. There's an optimum range. When you're above the range, seeds don't germinate well. When you're below the range, they don't germinate well. So there are a lot of very precise figures and statistics on this. I'll go ahead here and I'll post one in the video, but I'm also going to include some from University of California and University of Oregon. Very good information, but they're in PDFs, and I don't want to go through the hassle of turning them into a visual image. So I'm going to put them down below in the text. There'll be some links to some more information. And basically what this is it's going to tell you how long it's going to take that seed to germinate and at what temperatures it germinates best. Okay, so now that much said, almost all seeds will germinate in the soil moisture that would be permanent wilting for a mature plant. Yes, that means soil that was so dry that your tomato plant would drop dead in it when it was, 4 inches high or so. Well, that soil is adequately moist enough to get the tomato seed to germinate. And in fact, too much moisture in soil when trying to germinate seeds ordinarily will prevent germination. gases are also required around the seed. It's got to be air there too. So do not overly soak your seeds when you're trying to plant them. Now, most of the annual crop type seeds that we use, like corn, beans, most of these are well adapted to being put directly into the garden soil in the earth. They're farm crops, and so they use big seeders and they rip through dusty fields and jam that corn seed and those soybean seeds into the ground, and most of it grows. Yeah, it's that kind of seed. It's not picky. Not really. So, now, there might be reasons why you would or would not treat the seed in that fashion. When I lived in the Midwest and in California, say a seed like corn and bean, pea, these are large seeds with big sprouts, a type of thing that emerge strongly. They're strong germinating seeds. I would usually sow them directly in the garden soil where they were supposed to grow and let them grow up from there. Hawaii, I have had other issues, and mostly it's the ravaging of birds, particularly the American cardinal, but I might blame the minus for this too. They'll go down the rows when I plant the seed, and as it's germinating, they'll find it and they'll pull it all up to eat the seed kernel. And then I find all my peas and all my corn laying there dying in the sun. Well, to get around that, the simplest solution for me was I just simply went into the nursery. I planted all my corn seeds, all my bean seeds, my pea seeds in 6-packs on the table. When the corn got, say, about so high, big enough to handle, but not pot-bound and stressed, I'd go out into the garden, dig a pretty deep groove, push that thing down extra deep over where it might have germinated, and then pack the soil in hard around it, maybe even use my boot heel a couple of times to be sure that it's firmly embedded in the earth. Birds will try, they'll break a few leaves trying, and usually then give up and just fly away when they know they cannot extract the seed out of the ground. So there's a reason why a crop that is easily direct sown in many areas might not be direct sown everywhere. Well, another reason we don't direct sow some seeds, say for instance like broccoli, cabbages, that kind of thing, usually they benefit from being transplanted because they can be put in deeper, making larger root systems. Tomatoes are good that way too. And the seeds are kind of small when they germinate, and they're delicious. They're susceptible to everything under the sun. So if you plant your cabbage seed directly out in the garden, you may lose quite a bit of it. Maybe in the process of cultivating the weeds down, you won't find it. You'll cultivate it down yourself. Generally speaking, those cole crops, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, they're usually started in the nursery in containers, and then the transplants are put out. They're a plant that benefits from transplanting as long as you haven't allowed it to get old and pot-bound before you do that. All right, then there are those plants that are really just better off that you probably start them in the nursery. Onion is one. It's a weak germinator. Seeds don't have a lot of strength. I generally plant them extremely shallow. Just a little sprinkling of soil over the top after I spread them on the surface is all. They're kind of weak as far as their germination ability, and so I pamper them. If they have to compete with weeds and things, they're often lost. So I grow them in containers in the nursery. I let them turn into little scallions. Then I take them and I walk them out there and I plant them in the garden. I just did a video about the short day onions. Yep. And I have some koba, the Japanese multiplier scallion from the University of Hawaii over here behind me. It's sizing up, and I'm going to grow a bunch of that one. Man, that is a beauty. Scallions every day. Yeah, so now carrot seed is not a very strong germination seed either, but it's not a seed that you want to transplant. Now, you'll deform the taproot, and you'll get funky-looking carrots, most likely. So, we sow carrot seed directly where it's supposed to grow. Now, if you have soil that tends to crust, then using some compost, loose material, potting soil over the top will help. In California, because of the lack of rainfall, I would plant my carrots while the soil was still warm in fall, but the winter rains were coming eventually, and I'd plant them in trenches. Put the seed at the bottom of the trench, cover it with a layer of compost, 1/4 inch, and so, and then that would hold water right next to the seed, but had a loose material for the seeds to sprout in. Wisconsin has sandy loam. The soil was it didn't crust much. Okay, so I did not worry about it. The general rainfall was adequate to get the seed to come out of the ground. It will take carrot seed about 3 weeks. Yeah, that's part of the problem. It's a long germination on carrot seed. A tomato seed might come up in 48 to 72 hours. A carrot seed's going to take 3 weeks. In the meantime, a lot can go wrong. Dryness, floods, whatever. Walking on them, pack them in good. With carrots, make sure the seed is packed in well. Too much air around small seeds usually is negative. They will dry out too fast, especially the ones that take a long time to germinate. Yep, best row of carrots I ever had was when I planted them, and then my kids danced all around over the top of the rows and left baby footprints everywhere. I was angry, and my wife said, no fertilizer like a child's footprints. Well, she was right. That was where I learned to compact my carrot seed. The kids taught me. Yeah, so using radish seeds, a carrot seed, a radish seed, a carrot seed, a radish seed, that type of thing helps. The radish is very vigorous. It will shelter the row under its leaves, keeping a little humidity near the soil, break the crust for the little teeny carrots, and then if you carefully pull up your radishes on time, you will find little carrots underneath them usually. That works. If you like eating radishes, or you have a market for them. So, days to germination and temperature range. There are some seeds that we consider to be cool season vegetables. And again, I'm going to include charting here rather than go into all these details. There's too much to talk about here on this subject. But the right temperature range, generally most seed comes up easily, okay, and comes up well. I hear complaints all the time about this didn't grow, that didn't grow. Well, my usual thought was, maybe overwatering, old seed, depth of planting, etc., etc. Some people tend to just love to fertilize the day they put the seed in the soil. Well, guess what? The seed's got its own little packet of fertilizer built in. Yes, it's sort of like the yolk in a chicken egg in a way. There's food in the cotyledons of the seed. And the seedling will feed off of them until the first true leaves begin to emerge. So fertilizer is not required, and in fact, it can be really negative. Depends. You use it wrong, you can burn things. If nothing else, the organic stuff will make the soil biologically active. You may get mold going that you didn't want. A lot of reasons why you don't fertilize the day you put the seeds in. Well, let's talk about soaking in water, soaking seed. Now, most seeds will benefit by a short soak in room temperature water. Yeah, that will definitely, get past the seed coat and start to activate the seed. So in some cases, with seeds that have extremely hard seed coats, this can be really important. But in the case of most of our crops, I see it as a lost cause, a pain in the butt. Wet seed is hard to handle. It's messy. If I have wet seed and I'm going to try to take that and apply it to soil, next thing I know is I got soil all over my fingers, I got soil on the seed, I can't even see the seed, etc., etc. There are some real negatives to this, and in my mind, I don't understand why people do it, because if you take the seed, place it into a container of media, and water the soil, the seed's wet. Guess what? Yeah. You don't have to go through this messy process. I have never once seen that I had to soak most garden seed, like tomatoes and that, in water. Okay. Now, if you got really old, dry seed, maybe that's a reason to do that. Yeah. It might help. It might help. Now, moving away from the easy garden seeds, and we go into the world of trees, shrubs, and perennials and stuff. Now we're getting into some weirdness. That's kind of like if tomatoes, peppers, and cabbage are Newtonian physics, those trees in the forest, man, are quantum physics, and the two just don't seem to meet in the middle anywhere. Most of the average garden seeds don't really care very much what sort of media you're planting them in. You know, clean home compost often works. Bagged potting soils usually work fine. Of course, seed starting mixes are the best thing to use. I generally use universally professional growers' mediums like ProMix or SunGrow or that type of thing. They're over 80% milled sphagnum peat with perlite and mycorrhizae, you know. And they work fine. They're similar to the more expensive seed starting mixes sold for the home gardener. But once you get into those tree seeds, now I have a video online about growing koa tree, the Hawaiian koa tree, from seed. That video actually explains thousands of other tree seeds. Yes, you can follow the exact same instructions in there. And what it amounts to is that most of these seeds that have, especially ones with hard seed coats and that come from woody perennial plants, they can have some serious dormancy. And they're in nature, they're adapted sometimes to going through the gut of an animal, or being chewed on, or maybe being nicked by an insect or some such thing like that. That process is called scarification. That's where we scratch the seeds. People take them between two blocks of sandpaper. They use fingernail files. My favorite tool on fairly good sized seed, like a koa seed, is the fingernail clipper. Yeah, I put the fingernail clipper right on the edge of the seed, not at the top or the bottom, and I make a nick. And if I can see the inside of the seed, the whitish area, I know I'm there. And then the next step with these tree seeds is they get soaked in hot water. Now, the University of Hawaii recommends 180-degree water for soaking koa seed. I've always been a little nervous about that temperature. I get 140-degree right out of my water heater off the sun here. That's what I use. Full hot right out of the tap. It seems to work. I'm a little safer with it because I won't seriously burn myself with water at that temperature, and so I don't think I'll kill seeds either. But temperature higher is recommended. And you just take the seeds after they've been scarified and you put them in some kind of a dish and put hot water over it, set them aside, and you let them soak into the next day overnight. At least an 8-hour soak in hot water. You let the water cool down around them. You'll usually see in the morning that the seeds are pumped up some. Yeah, they've gotten a little round because of this. Took water in. A lot of tree seeds like koa, if it's not scarified and hot water treated, they're going to take often 6 to 12 months before they start to come up erratically. Okay, you'll get some pop up in a few weeks, some pop up 3 months, some at 6, some at 12. It's kind of hard to control a situation like that. So if we treat the seed, pre-treated seed will ordinarily be up pretty uniformly within about 2 weeks. And this also goes for, the Momani tree here, Sophora chrysophylla, or, I know I've used this on the Australia flame tree, Brachycarton acerifolium, in the past. And there is no data out there anywhere that I have ever found on that tree as far as how to get it to germinate. Nothing good anyway. It's all BS. You find it says plant the seeds. I found that on 12 different sources. You plant the seeds and you then wait 2 years and maybe they come up. But they're up in a few weeks if you hot water and scarify them. So now as you get into the more exotic seeds, you're going to want to get better and better and better grades of media. Yeah. The soil a seed grows in is as important as the seed itself. And so definitely while working with, maybe expensive seed from exotic plants, I wouldn't use bag potting soils for this purpose. Personally, they're too unpredictable and too unreliable. Some of them are literally toxic. Some are real good. But most of them are made for plants that are already germinated and growing. Okay. So when you have a small plant, you use potting soil. If you're trying to get a seed to germinate, you want to use some sort of a grower's medium, some sort of a seed starting mix, mostly milled sphagnum peat with perlite and vermiculite, maybe horticultural sand. These are good medias. Okay, pumice maybe. Oh, you want to spend money? You get mixed with pumice in it. That's all good stuff. All right. So now some seeds require light. They don't germinate well unless they're in the presence of light. There's a lot of cactus seed that's like that. Hylocereus undatus and Solanacereus megalathus, dragon fruit seeds. They tend to germinate best when they're laid on the surface and the sun hits them. Sometimes if you're, in a dry climate, saran over the top of a cactus seed pot helps. Yeah. Especially the ones that got the really, really tiny poppy seed-like seeds. Yeah, so that's put some saran over the top, put the seed on the surface of the soil, mist it down, make sure the soil was already pre-moistened, so you're not working with dry soil. Put the seed on there, press it down a bit, mist it with water, press it in a little more, and then wrap it with saran. Keep it out of direct sunlight so it doesn't become a solar cooker. And then as you start to see a good percentage germinating, half the seed or so, take the saran off so you don't get mold. The rest will usually come up following or not come up, whatever, Yeah. Storage of seed. Storage of seed affects germination. Old seed generally doesn't germinate well. Some seed, when it gets really old, can be enticed to germinate by scarifying, hot water treating, that sort of thing. Gibberellic acid is used sometimes. It's a scary little weird chemical from fungus. I don't care for it, but soaking seeds in a solution of it when they're old and hard to germinate has been known to cause them to germinate. Now, some seeds require very special temperature conditions, and that's what we call stratification. That means that the seed is planted in one season in soil that's moist, but it will then go through another season, usually winter, where it will literally, freeze in the pots or in the ground or whatever, that it will get really, really, really cold. And then spring comes, it warms up, and then the seeds begin to germinate. Pawpaw. Pawpaw is one of those seeds that I've worked with extensively that requires cold stratification. If you have pawpaw seed right now in your hands, and if you hadn't planted it and you're in the mainland someplace, hey, get that stuff in a pot, water it in, and throw it out underneath the tree someplace and let it sit till spring. Your only other option is to wrap it up in moss in a bag, and put it into the refrigerator, put it in the vegetable drawer. But I don't know how many times I've done that. And then, 6, 8 months later, I'm digging through the drawer and I'm throwing out rotten potatoes and I go, oh my God, what is this? Oh, what is this? Oh, it's pawpaw seed. Never did that again. No. I always plant it in fall. It's the best way to deal with it. A lot of maple seeds are like that. There's a whole lot of different, a lot of your fruit pits, apple seeds, pear pits, you want to get that stuff to germinate. It's much easier if it's planted in fall and allowed to sit there over the winter. The cold will break some sort of dormancy trigger in the seeds, so when it gets warm again, it goes, all right, and it'll rock it. Yeah, so there's another requirement. As I said, there is nothing simple to say about this subject. And actually, as in the koa seed video that I did, I could probably take every seed there is and run it through its own video on the precise differences from one seed to another. Like I said, with most of the garden seeds, your main differences are going to be how long it takes to emerge from the soil, what temperature range it likes to have to emerge from the soil, and another, how long will that seed store? I have people tell me, I don't have any luck at all with lettuce seeds or with onion seeds. Well, when I inquire, I find out the seed is a few years old. Lettuce seed doesn't store. Under the best of conditions, if you've got it with silicon dioxide and you have it under cold storage, not freezing, but refrigerator temperature, you'll extend the life of most seed a little bit. You store it in liquid nitrogen like they do in seed banks. Well, you maybe store it for a century or two. I don't know. But, cold helps. Cold will help. It has an issue, though. Remember, I use glass jars in storing seed. It's impervious to moisture. I use silicon dioxide inside the jars to keep the seeds dry. But a concern of mine always is when I'm opening the jars and going in to get some seed, when I bring that seed out, humidity begins to form around it because of the difference in temperature, and the air here is humid. And so I'm not very fond of taking seed out and just using one or two and then putting it back too many times, because it keeps getting rehydrated every time I move it. So when I do this, if I'm not using all the seed, I will generally move quickly. Take it out, spill out some seed, put it back where it was, cap it, put it back in cold storage. So like I say, different seeds have different storage times. I'm not sure whether I found any charting on that. In general, cucurbits, the melons, pumpkins, cucumbers, are about the longest living garden seeds, up to about 16 years if they're stored properly. Cabbage and broccoli and all that are kind of after it, with tomatoes too, maybe about 7 years on those. But things like carrot seeds, onion seeds, lettuce seeds, even bean and corn really figure 1 year. If it's older than 1 year, you can usually push a little bit more out of the bean and corn if you plant extra heavy. But with onions, just throw the seed out, honestly. There's not going to be much life left in it. So then there's this thing about germination of seed in artificial conditions and plants in water. Forever I have people coming to me about, well, you start it in water, don't you? Yeah, in third grade, when the teacher asked me to bring in a glass, a sweet potato, and some toothpicks, we planted the sweet potato in the window in water, and amazingly it grew roots in the jar, made a top, and grew up in the window, and
full of algae, and then the teacher had to get them out of the window because they were getting ugly and all over the place. And that was, I don't know, some kind of a lesson for kids. Well, that carried into home gardening later, that people will start all their cuttings in water, and this kind of thing. Well, I worked in the nursery industry, professional, for 3 decades, and on the West Coast, I toured most of the major professional grower nurseries at that time that I did business with, at least, and I only ran across 2 that ever started a plant in water, and both of them were aquatic plant growers. Yes, water lilies, such tulies. Yeah, and those guys do work in water because those plants naturally grow in water, and they never grow on dry land, okay? But if you got a cutting of a pothos, philodendron, or whatever it is, and Grandma puts it in a glass of water, that's real cute. It grows roots and all that stuff. But the roots that grow in water are not the same as the type of roots that grow in soil. And so when you take your plant from the glass of water and put it into a pot of soil or into the ground, most of the water roots die away, and the plant has to start over again, beginning to grow soil roots. Some things, like pineapple tops, for instance, do not like being soaked in water. Sometimes it breaks through the paraffin coating and it will cause necrotic spots in the leaves. I have seen it. I have soaked tops before trying to get rid of ants for the Department of Agriculture. And boy, I ruined a lot of pineapple tops that way. Yeah. They don't soak them in water. I don't care what the guys out there say. A pineapple top will grow just fine when planted directly in soil. It does not need to be soaked in water. It's not a water plant. I see this thing too with people use a plastic bag, paper towels or napkins, and they put the seeds in there, and they do these germinations of seeds so that they sprout the seeds in the paper towels. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've been in a lot of prairies. I've been in a lot of forests. I've never seen a plastic bag full of paper towels with acorns germinating in it, okay? This is just doesn't happen in nature. The seeds are put directly into the media and they grow. Now, there is one really good reason why you would do that, and it's called a germination test. So if you have old seed that's questionable, you want to find out whether it's worth bothering with, well, take 12, put them in there, in the bag, And then when you go back 2 weeks later, you open it up and you look, and there's only 2 germinating out of 12, your percentage is really lousy. On the other hand, if you got all 12 growing, you got some really good seed again. Yeah, this is one of the things that I don't know how it got there, but there's people growing their own recreational medical cannabis. This seems to become, you germinate the seeds in a plastic bag, well, testing to see if that seed was any good. As I said, that's good. If you found a bag of Panama red seeds in a freezer that had been there for 30 or 40 years, you might try a germination test on them first. Or you might just plant them and see what comes up, too. But now that cannabis seed, guys, just get yourself some good media, in a pot, and plant a seed in there. It's going to grow. It'll grow up just fine. And if you don't have to disturb it, this is the issue. When a seed is sprouted, you have to disturb it. You're messing with it. That's not normal for the seed. It wants to be spread through the soil, growing little red hairs. It doesn't want to be inside a plastic bag going, where am I going? What's up? What's down? What the heck is going on here? Yeah. It's a very alien condition for the seed. Well, there you go, folks. I'm sure some of you have seed left from last garden season there, and
Now, this would be the year you might want to try a germination test on the stuff. Bill said the lettuce seed's dead. Maybe you want to prove it. Take a look. Maybe it's still good. Who knows? I can't tell you for sure. Depends on conditions. So if you got old seed, you might want, it's a good time to give her a shot in the kitchen cabinet there in a bag and see what it does. Otherwise, getting ready there for next year's season, having a little better understanding of how long it takes seed to come up, what kind of conditions it needs, and so on. You'll get better benefit from the seed if you had to buy it, or whether you grew it yourself, it doesn't matter. But you'll get a better benefit from it. Alrighty, enough said. I can do a video on every seed on earth, I think, but let's try to condense this. Hang loose.
And for the Gracie Cat fans, yeah, she's been right here the whole time, right, Gracie? Sitting right there behind me. You're a good girl.
See, there's my chair. There's a video tripod. Here's the cat. It's just like that all the time. She just wants to be with me. Right, Gracie? Aloha, folks.